In today's video, we're talking about financial planning for couples, steps that couples can take so they can build healthier financial lives together. So the first step in this process is going to be communication. Communication is key. You guys want to make sure you're on the same page when it comes to finances. Even if one spouse handles it all and the other spouse has nothing to do with it, you still need to come together and talk about stuff. Going from budgeting, investing, and really the main thing you want to start off with is your goal planning. After all, you can't really start a path unless you know where the destination is. So you need to know what kind of goal you want to. Now, I would ask you guys to stay away from money goals. So saving up for $1 million retirement sounds cool, but really doesn't mean much to people. Everyone's retirement is different, and I wouldn't shoot for any particular number in general. Instead, you want to focus on the key things like, do we want to have our house paid off by a certain time? Do I want to be retired at 62 or 65? Things of that nature. Something with a little more concrete that we have a bit more control over. And so we want to start with what our goals are. And once we have those goals set in stone, then we can kind of work backwards and figure out a plan of how to get there. So start off with that, and you want to be kind of open with what our plans are. And keep in mind that you guys may have some disagreements. So we have some couples that one person wants to pay off the house early and the other one doesn't. So you guys have to kind of come together and try to figure out which we want to go and try to find some kind of middle ground there. This is something that we see all the time in some of our meetings. And our favorite couples by far to work with are the ones that are both there, that show up and both of them are actively engaged. And you know that they have good communication skills because they both know what's going on. And I can ask either any one of them questions and they'll give me pretty much the same answer for what they're thinking, what they're planning. The ones that I kind of worry about are the ones that show up with just one spouse present, the other one is too busy, or you shouldn't even see them sitting on the couch in the background. They're just like, can't be bothered to talk about their finances because it doesn't apply to them or something like that. Those usually not good situations. Other ones is when one spouse just kind of sits there and doesn't say anything. Really questions, do they want to be there? Do they know what's going on? They need to be a part of it, because if something happens to that one spouse, you're going to have all figured out what other documents are, what your passwords are, what the plan is. And chances are, if you weren't engaged all these years, you're going to be kind of in over your head. So we want to be engaged. By far, I guess the funniest ones to deal with are the ones where that spouse, usually the husband, is off on the side of the camera, kind of like this. And you can see their hands just folded. And you can tell they just don't want to be there. And I guess that, the wife's made them sit there or something like that, but they're sitting there even off camera. So they like really don't want to be there. Those couples most times are usually in not the best place financially, at least from a communication standpoint. They don't know what's really going on. So make sure you have good communication skills. And when you guys show up to a meeting, whether it be me or someone else, be present, be active, both be in the frame. It makes everyone look a little better just in general. All right, second step. Now that we have our goals set up, what you guys want to be doing is now working on a budget. I know no one likes budgeting. It sucks. You're seeing where all your money goes and kind of hurts, but it can be really eye-opening to actually sit down and see where the money is going. It doesn't have to be something that is real specific. You can just kind of give yourself ballpark ideas of what your budget could be. But the best thing to do is to go back over the last 12 months. Yes, I know I said 12 months. Go through the bank statements, credit card transactions, and kind of get an idea of where you stand. Now, you want a quick tip on the easy way to do this is you want to have an aggregator app that can kind of pull these transactions for you. They can just download it all in one file. So personally, I use something like Mint. I just have all my credit cards and bank accounts listed there. So end of the month, I can go in there. I can just say, hey, download all credit card transactions, all bank transactions. And then I just pull them all into one Excel sheet. I hit that, get the sum of it all. And I instantly have, what income was, what the expenses were for that month. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time. You just have to have the proper tools in place to help you guys get that set up. When you do this, you might be kind of surprised that the numbers might be higher than you think. I know that was the case for me when I did this same exercise for our household. So sitting down and getting the budget actually on paper to see what is actually going out, not what you think is going out, is important. Because once you know what you're spending, you can see areas you can be cutting back on and really see how much money is left over that could be used towards saving for your goals. So once you have all that set up and your budget's in place, step 3 is deciding what to do with the extra leftover money. So before you go and do anything extra above, the basic, mortgage, food bills, something like that, you want to make sure that you're saving enough for yourself in the future. So savings comes into play, and that's something that you need a lot of communication with as well, is where are we going to be saving this money? Does it go into my retirement plan? Does it go to your retirement plan? Do we have our own independent one, like an IRA? So you kind of got to talk and decide what's the best place to go for that. That's where advisors come into play, as well as helping you guys figure out the best strategy to use for that. If someone has a match, it usually makes sense to put it in that person's account at least till you hit the match, and then you can figure out what to do with the excess money after that. Figuring out kind of where to go and then what stocks to pick would be the next step there. Now, after that, or you could probably even argue before that, you want to make sure that you have the proper insurance coverages in place. After all, what good is all the assets and money that you have if it can all be lost like that because you don't have the proper risk protection in place? So when we talk risk protection or insurance here, we gotta look at all of it. We gotta look at our home insurance policies, your car insurance policies. If you have $500,000 saved retirement, but you're running minimum coverages on your vehicles, chances are you get into one bad accident and they kind of hit limits on your policy and they need more. Where are they going to go? That's right, they're going to go right to your retirement account. So you want to make sure you have enough coverage in place that they can take the car insurance company's money and not yours. Other things to consider are something like umbrella policies. They're a policy relatively inexpensive that gives extra liability coverage that goes over your house and your car, right? It's the umbrella. So it's just an extra line of defense to help cover assets, especially when you start going over the $500,000 asset level. That's usually where the car insurance coverage kind of top out at. So once you start crossing over that area, that's when a good time to look at umbrella policies would be. Next would be looking at something like life insurance. So you want to make sure you have something in place that if someone passes away, you can replace their income. That's the number one reason for life insurance. Yes, paying off debt and debt is part of the reason too, but the biggest asset most people have is their ability to work and earn income. A rule of thumb I like to tell people is you need about $1 million of coverage for every $50,000 of income you need to replace. So if I work and make $100,000 a year, I should have at least $2 million of coverage. Why? Because if my wife were to get $2 million and she could take 5% of that a year, it'd be $100,000. It would essentially replace all of my income that was lost. If it's invested correctly, it should keep maintaining that for years to come. So that's why you need to have the proper level of insurance in place. I know some people have your small payments, 250, 500,000, just to cover the house. That's great. But once the house is paid off, there's still gonna be bills to come that need to be paid. So you need to have something to help replace your income. Life insurance is a great tool for that. Next step is kind of dealing with the debt part of it. So if we have student loan debt, mortgages, cars, things like that, is what strategy are we going to use to help pay off the debt? So there's a couple different ways you can go about it. I usually use something called an avalanche rule. So basically, I'll take any debt payments and I'm going to sort them by highest interest to lowest interest, and I pay off the highest interest one first. I know some people like to go highest balance to lowest balance and things like that, or reverse, even lowest balance to highest balance. And the idea is that I pay off the lowest balance, I can use the minimum payment and snowball it down that way. Could work, but if my lowest balance one is only charging me 2% and my highest balance one is charging me 30, I'm going to make a bigger dent as far as saving an interest if I start paying off the higher interest one first. So that's the way I look at it when doing kind of debt payoff strategies for people. Now, another good thing to have as a couple is making sure that you have money set aside in an emergency fund to cover any kind of one-off expenses, right? So maintenance on the house, you have to change the tires in your car, things like that. You want to make sure you have some kind of money on the side set up to cover these kind of one-off expenses that can kind of come out of nowhere for you. Now, the important thing, and what I see what a lot of couples do, is get carried away with this. Instead of having 20 or 30,000 in there, they have 50,000, 100,000, sometimes even $200,000 in cash, just sitting there for just in case. Now, can you tell me what in the world could possibly happen that you need $200,000 liquid to spend like that? Unless you're buying real estate or something like that, that's probably a bit too much, and you're just losing a lot of interest, especially if you're not putting in a high yield interest account. While emergency savings is important, don't get too carried away with it. Because especially remember that once you're at retirement age, all the money you have, regardless of what retirement account it is liquid and accessible to you. So you don't need to have such a high excess at that time. Now, the final step to all this is maintenance. So it's one thing to go ahead and get a plan all set up, but it's another thing to maintain it. Because over time, things are going to change. Income changes, your lifestyle changes. And you want to make sure that you're keeping up with this. You want to make sure that the budget's staying intact, that your investment strategies are staying there. If you notice your savings are starting to creep up, hey, maybe I need to increase my savings. If I see my savings do the opposite and start to go down, maybe I got to go ahead and adjust the budget. So regular maintenance is really important. If you need some accountability and help with that, that's where an advisor might come into play. Someone that's a third party, kind of independent, that can look at your strategy and kind of tell you guys what you guys need to do to help increase your odds of your achieving your goals. All right, so hope that helps you guys out. Remember that if you guys need some kind of help or just need some one-off advice, there's a link in the description to schedule a time with our office. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Remember that your future depends on what you do today.